I'm Sid, and these are my best friends. My mom, Kim, my dad, Ty, my sister, Maddie, and our salty dog, Stella. We started our adventure refitting a Lagoon 450 before taking on the massive project of resurrecting a sunken 2021 Leopard 50. It's been one heck of a ride, but we're on this adventure to die with memories, not dreams, and live dauntless.
Okay guys, today is the day batteries are going in. Or bad things are gonna happen. I'm just kidding. Frank and Ty have a plan. They're actually going to put a piece of wood as kind of like a platform underneath the batteries so that they have a stable surface all the way across to be able to rest on. This isn't going to be the final finished product because we are going to have to change out this battery bank when we get the new batteries from Battleborn with the Intelligence. So it is temporary, but the finished part we'll do later. It's not something that we want to take the time doing now because right now is more important that we get power on the boat so that we can get moved onto the boat. So Frank is doing some measurements on the board so that he can pre-drill the pieces and get them put in properly. So while Ty and Frank are working on that, Shannon and I are going to tackle the mess at the nav station, which is where we've collected all of our extra, I'm going to classify them as electrical components. They range from chart plotters and lights all the way down to fuses and heat shrink. So we need to make sense of all of that. So while we're going through and doing all of this electrical work, that we can actually find all of our crap.
Okay, so with 5.5 from center to center, what I've done is I've laid this out and I've measured the distance, and I'm going to show you what that looks like. Measured center to center on the lugs, and then I have spaced those down and then measured between them to get 3.25 inches of actual cable length. And that'll allow me just to trim 3/4 of an inch off either side for the insulation and have the perfect amount of insulation in between. Right, and that's how you do that. Okay, down behind me here is this is the 12 volt bank in the boat. So these are 8 Battleborn batteries. They're all 100 amps a piece. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to wire these in parallel from front to back here. So positive to positive, negative to negative is what parallel is. And then I'm going to run it into this Lynx power in distribution box. And at the end there is a LUGS shunt. So that's going to allow me to monitor that at my main distribution and breaker box. So what I'm going to do is, real quick, I'm going to clamp you up here so you can watch, but I'm going to clamp to one battery terminal and make my way over, and I'll show you how I measure with a little bit of room to be able to work the cables. All right, so they're 5/16 bolts that come with the batteries, and these are 5/16 lugs. There is a little bit of space. You might be able to get a 3/8 in there, but I don't push my luck. So because I've got to come up over top of this hump in the battery, I can't really get a lug to line up like so. So I've decided that I'm going to come over top of the batteries, and I'm going to add the lug in like so. Okay. Now, I want to have a little bit of room over top of here, so I don't want it super tight. So I'm just going to line these up and just give it a little push to arch it up a little bit, so I've got a little bit of space under here. And then where this lug starts to taper down, the fat barrel, I'm going to grab the wire right there, and that's my wire length. I'll pull the insulation off about 5/8 of an inch inside of that. So now I can loosen this with one hand, take this downstairs, cut it and crimp it. I also want my crimps to go the same direction because obviously the batteries are lined up, so the lugs need to be in line with one another and not twisted, because you don't want to try to twist this cable and put stress on it just to get the lugs to line up and be able to clamp them in. These lugs are about 5/8 of an inch from this bulbous part here to the end. So I've already stripped 5/8 of an inch
Sorry.
off that side. And then, so when I measure this, I'm going to measure to the edge of the lug plus 5/8 of an inch. That carries me to 5 7/8 of an inch wide is how long I'm going to cut that. Yeah, 5 7/8. So every other one will be that length, positive or negative, because all the batteries are the same dimension. There we go. It's a nice, clean crimp. Now throw a little bit of heat shrink on either end of that, and then do that a whole bunch more times.
Because most everything in these boxes are actually gonna get installed, but we needed some semblance of order as to what we had and where the heck it is, because before it was just a cluttered mess, and you know how well I do with that. It drives me crazy. So anyway, Shannon is an organizational genius. I appreciate that because I like to think of myself typically as one as well. What we did was we put like things in totes. So you can see on this, we labeled the top side of the tote with basically all the little tidbits that are in here on blue tape, so that if we're done with all the bilge pumps, for example, we can just rip bilge pumps right off of there and it's no longer in the tote. But obviously I can't stack all of them face forward and have all of those labels on one side of the box or another. We just put general labels on the outside of the box so that we know kind of what's in that box, go specifically into it and get in there and get whatever we need. So I think the organization turned out great. Ty has been using it like clockwork and he's been able to find everything he needed. So check. Okay guys, we have big stuff happening today. Today, Ty is going to finish putting the lugs on and getting the wires hooked up for the series parallel system on the 12-volt battery bank. And then we are going to be putting in the control panel that he used, the Shaper Origin and the Quantro. Is that how you say it? Quantro?
No, that's liquor, baby.
Oh.
Conturo,
excuse me. He's made some He's made some custom panels for some of our breakers, for the house banks and the engine controls and whatnot. So we're going to show you all of that. And yeah, we're getting close, guys. We're going to be on this boat very soon. So let's see what's going on. All right, what are you doing?
And I'm drilling holes to mount my cute little support brackets that I've made that are going to hold this up down there, and this is where our positive and negative bus bars for our 48 volt are going to go. So I'm just drilling and pre-drilling all of my countersinks for the screws, and then I will get ready to mount that guy in here in a little bit.
And you're doing that so that the head of the screw seats in?
Yep. Hoping that I have that shaped screw. We'll see.
That's later's problem.
Yeah, it's about to be later. I'm gonna pocket hole it to this wall. All right, I just need to cut my pocket holes. I'm gonna do them on the top side because I won't be able to get up underneath with the angle of the impact with the batteries there, but I'm gonna put the bus bars over top of it so it'll hide it. All right, so then these will wire up, positive and negative, and then I'm gonna build some clear acrylic covers that go over top of this, so that if anything like a wrench or something falls in there that you can't get contacted with, well, with electricity. Safety first. All right, so now the next thing I need to do is I need to calculate how high up I need to put these supports that I've made. Don't move. I want to make sure that I've got clearance to get a lug on top of these terminals and get my 1/4 inch plexiglass underneath of here. And then I've got 3/4 of an inch of material for this cover, and then we need to allow another 3/4 of an inch for the little starboard runners that hold the seat from shifting around down on the inside. All right, so the other day off camera, I tested the voltages of all the batteries before we installed them. I then tested that both 48 volt series strings were the same voltage. It's been a couple days. I'm gonna test them again before I connect them to the bus bar to make sure that their voltages are equalized. If they're not equalized, you must charge the one battery bank up to match the other, or one battery to match the other, and you want to use a power supply to do that. I'll have Sid pop up on the screen what that power supply looks like. So it's extremely important when connecting any battery in parallel that all the voltages are very, very close, if not exactly the same. So I'm going to test that really quick, and then I'm going to put the two 48 volt positive leads on the 48 volt bus bar, and then I'm going to put the cap on this, call this good, and move on to the next project. We should have 52.8 volts.
Oops, hold on, I gotta get close.
So this Milwaukee, you'll notice there's going to be a beeping on this, which you won't see on my Klein. Anything that this determines is going to be a dangerous voltage, it will start beeping at you to let you know that that's higher voltage and you need to take caution.
Is that a pro tip on?
Pro tip! Alright. That's hooked up. I'm going to get my 12 volt bank tied together to its main bus bars, and then I'm going to start working on the feeds down to the actual big distribution terminals through the shunts. But I want to get all of the batteries connected to their bus bars first. This goes in just like so. It tucks up right under there and then rests, and it gives us just about 2 1/8 inches of storage space, which should be plenty for, you know, a good stack of flat charts and chart books and what have you. So, here you go. All right, so you notice there's no cover on this like there is on the 48 volt that Kim's sitting on. And I don't believe this is going to be the final resting place for this. So I want to make sure that everything lays out. And if I need to move this, the only thing that we'll need to change is this short run of cable that goes from here down below into the electrics room. We are going to load everything on the boat, get all the rest of the equipment installed, and then we're going to move some batteries around in the boat based on where we can most appropriately shift the weight if necessary. So they may stay here. In that case, they'll get a cover. If not, they're going to go somewhere else and they'll get a cover there.
Turn this around. This is the old setup where they had the house bank and the tender lift hookup, the deck winches, and the windlass. And we are changing that. This one is going to go in its place, and it will have the 48 volt bank, the 12 volt bank, the tender lift, the windlass, and then these are our two switches for our engines.
I got that one stuck in there tight. It's screwed in. Alright. Alright, let me get the vacuum and then I'll see if I can put that piece in here and if it lines up like I want it to. Are you ready now?
Okay, so we're coming into the final stretches of this wiring to get this system up and running. So now is the long run to connect basically the wire from up here at the batteries down to the inverter cabinet. So the blue room, the Victron room, what should we call that? What are we calling that? Leave a comment down below. Should we call the Victron room or the blue room or...
Oh, Jesus, woman.
Let's run wire. So we have run this fish tape through the tubing. Thank you, Leopard, for having tubing on a boat to be able to run conduit, wire, everything through. We've connected it now to our 4-gauge wire.
4-aught.
4-aught. Sorry, did I say 4-gauge? I'm tired and hot.
All right, so you pull this through, or you feed it through, and I'm going to pull it from the other side.
Okay.
All right, guys, here. We've pulled this 4-aught wire up from the main 48 volt switch by the companionway door down through the tubing. Now I'm going to put a lug on this because I've got to run it below this area where all these bus bars are at, and I've got to feed it back through there. So I want to put the lug on it before I kind of fish it back in there. This is a pain in the butt. There's not a whole lot to see, but I'll try to show you as best I can. If I come back to you and it's done, well, surprise. But until then, I'm going to strip, crimp, heat shrink, and feed. I ordered the special 90-degree. All right, pro tip. I have labeled all of these as you've seen, as you can see here. I've got Sharpie all over all of these guys. And this is what I'm gonna label. I labeled them so I knew which cable goes to what. But like all plans,
all good laid plans. Things have changed, and I'm just going to rearrange these, but I want to get rid of these labels. So the pro tip is this. Any smooth surface that I need to write on that's non-porous, that's not going to permanently absorb it in Sharpie, I just write all willy-nilly on whatever I want. Because then, ready for it? Ty's pro tip, take a dry erase marker on dried Sharpie and watch this. And then it wipes right off. Want to see it again?
Yeah.
Solar, I just wipe like this. There you go. So what ends
No
up...
solvent required.
No way.
No way.
What? No way. Oh, for sakes, it's so simple.
If you guys haven't watched that guy, he's hysterical. All right, so now I've got the 12 volt DC negative run down through the floor, and I've got the proper length along with where I want to tie it back and secure it down to the bus bar. I'm going to go up top and measure that over to where the links shunt for the 12 volt is. We're going to cut it there, then pull it all the way out so we can measure a positive one to match, and then we'll put lugs on both of them and get them installed. Alright guys, now I have these cables that are coming down in from the 12 volt bank up top. I'm going to run both of them all the way down to this bus bar that's down here, and then I'm going to back feed up halfway and put this switch in here to be able to turn the 12 volt bank on and off so that I can't isolate out the 12 volt circuits to be able to work on them if necessary. Now I've got to get this switch mounted up there. So I've got to cut through this and mount the switch back up underneath it here. All right, so we got our switch in down here, and our ground cable runs up next to it, and we'll still be able to put our negative pre-charge resistor and all that fun stuff that we're going to do next week. We'll still be able to mount it right here. So it's getting a little dark. You can see it's pitch black outside. So I'm going to stop here for tonight. I'm going to tie these last two cables into the 12 volt bank, and then that will be done. And then I will actually, in the daylight, give you a tour and a status of where we're at now and give you an update about what's happening next week. Good night.
Da, 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 da. Are you happy?
Yeah, I'm happy.
Take two.
All right, guys, it has been one heck of an eventful week. We've got batteries installed. We've got things wired up to bus bars. We've got switches in. And as promised, I'm going to walk you through all of that right now. So let's start with the 48 volt bank. That is two sets of 4 12 volt batteries run in series to make 48. And that's right here in the settee where our chiller used to be. So 4 game changers. These are 270 amp hours a piece. And after they run in series, they're hooking up to these 2,000 amp bus bars. We have a positive and a DC negative. And then from here, we're going to route over to a fuse. And this right here is going to be the fuse for our 48 volt
bank. So after it comes out of the bus bar, runs through this fuse, and then goes to this switch right here. Speaking of switches, let's jump on the other side, and I'll show you what that looks like. So here at the companionway, they've got this nifty little access hole, which houses all of our on-off switches, or our main disconnects, and some of the breakers for the boat. Now this used to have breakers for the windlass and the winches, and we're going to move those here in the future. But for right now, we have a 48 volt main power switch. This turns on the entire boat or shuts off the entire boat. This is our 48 volt backbone. Next, this will be labeled as 12 volt main power. This will turn off all the main power to the boat if we on the 12 volt side, if we turn this off. This switch here, this allows us to turn on and off our lift system outside to be able to raise and lower the dinghy. This is our windlass breaker that I'm leaving in here. And then the last two things that we've done is
We've moved our switches for our start batteries from the closets downstairs. A lot of catamarans have switches for the batteries down in the hulls. So if you need to leave quickly, you have to go downstairs in each hull, open up a cabinet, dig through some clothes and find the switch to be able to turn it on and off. So what we did is we put these relay switches in here so that we'll be able to walk down from the helm, flip these switches, and start the engines from here, or give power to the engines from here. These are remote switches. The big ones are down in the engine room, and we're going to get to that in a future episode. So for now, that's what we have. 48 volt on-off, our 12 volt disconnect, and then some breakers and switches for other auxiliary equipment. Let's go over to the 12 volt bank that we wired up, and I'll show you what that looks like now. Now, in addition to our 48 volt bank, we have our 12 volt bank. This is 800 amp hours, so we have 8 100 amp Battle-Born batteries in here, and I've run all of these in parallel. So we've got 4 sets of 2 that run down here to this distribution box. This distribution box is just a power in, and then from here we have our shunts. So we can measure with this shunt our 12 volt bank, and then in between here is where a fuse will go. So this is how we protect all the cabling down to the main distribution panel in the blue room, electric room. Again, please tell us what we should call this. Speaking of the blue room, let's go down there and take a look at that, and we'll show you where all of this stuff terminates. All right, now that we're down here in the blue room, I'm going to walk you through 12 volt and then 48 volt. So this guy right here is our 12 volt distribution bus, just from here over. So what I've got here is the 12 volt coming down from the bank upstairs. This is the main power switch. This switched 12 volt plus this ground comes down to here, and this is going to be our main feed. From this main bus bar, this will be our house lead that runs up to that main switch up top. That's going to feed all of our 12 volt up to the windlass, house bank, and winches. From there, we have our 48 volt bank. This is the 48 volt positive and ground in. This right here is another shunt that measures our power coming in and out of the battery from up top. And then we have our 48 volt outputs. So all 8 of these posts here are going to go to specific areas of the boat. 3 of them will be these 3 inverters here. Plus we've got alternator charging. We've got a 48 volt DC house bank for our air conditioning, which we're going to get to. We have our DC solar input and a couple other things that we're going to get to down the road. But that's where the power comes in from down here. So now, to catch you guys up, we have shore power from the brand new outlet and breakers through our galvanic isolator into our bus bars up here that are now feeding shore power into these when we turn it on. We will then be able to take that power out of these DC cables that I put in. Those will run down to this DC distribution bar and backfeed power into our 48 volt bank. From there, we can charge our 12 volt off of our 48 volt with our DC to DC converters. And if we run out of our DC to DC converters go down, then that 12 volt bank that's up there that runs through the switch will be able to provide any backup power to the tune of 800 amp hours so we can get safely back to port somewhere to get everything fixed. So I think that pretty much does it, guys. Spent a lot of work. It's hot. I didn't film a whole lot of the cut and crimp because we did that last week, But this coming week, there's all kinds of exciting stuff. I'm going to be building plexiglass covers for all of these exposed high voltage bus bars. I'm going to be putting in a DC shutoff for our 48 volt bank, and that's where our pre-charge resistors, and we got all kinds of cool stuff coming. This is going to put us about 3 days from starting to install air conditioning, which makes me pretty happy. So until then, if you guys like the content and you like this detail, please let me know in the comments below. Also, let me know what we should call this room full of all these magic blue boxes. Until then, I hope you guys have a great week. Make sure to like, subscribe, share, all that fun stuff, and I'll see you guys next week.